So, 2 days ago I had a theory.
Oh, okay.
Underwater civilization.
Right. Okay.
Is it possible for the future?
I don't know. I mean, we somehow need to get enough oxygen down there, or just air. We just need air down there. So how are we gonna...
Everyone will have a snorkel, right? Well, I was thinking about this. So, the world's like 70% water, right? We're going to run out of space eventually. So why don't we start building down into the water?
Well, I have two things out of that. Number one, I don't want to spend my life with a snorkel on. Right. Secondly, we're not going to take up the space because currently in most Western countries anyway, I think the birth rate is actually lower than the death rate. I think we're under...
Yeah, we're underpopulating, but eventually, like, back up from Mars, just live underwater.
Yeah, I think I'd rather just stay here. It'd be a bit busy. I don't know.
But you can do both, right? You can have your walk about on Earth, and then you can go for a swim.
Yeah.
And people can have houses underwater. There can be like little tanks.
It's not just air though; it's water pressure as well, right? And where are you planning to build the buildings? Because if you've got an underwater civilization, right, if we go down right to the seabed, the water pressure is going to crush our skull. So we need to think clearly about this. Are we going to have floating places? If so, how are they going to float? Are they going to move with the tide? How's that going to work?
So you won't have floating places. They'll just be right on the bottom.
Bro, the seabed, the water pressure's too much. Unless everyone's in a submarine all the time.
Yeah, that can be transport.
Okay, but what happens when you get there and you're on the seabed? You're like miles underneath the surface. Maybe not miles, but thousands of meters.
Well, we're just evolved to be good at it.
Evolved to be good at what?
Taking in the pressure.
No, we're not though, bro. Honestly.
But we get better at it, and also we get better at swimming. Population would be less obese.
How do you train someone to deal with water pressure better than you just keep pushing them down and down until they die?
Well, if we can deal with going up in the air, then what's wrong with going down further?
Because I think getting crushed is better than low.
We can start off simple and just build out by the beaches.
Okay, I can agree with that. We'll start there. Yeah, because if you go a little bit off from a beach, it won't be that bad. Yeah. All right.
And then you can, there's already hotels out there that are like underwater and stuff. It would appeal to people. Imagine the glass, right? You look around, it's nice fishes swimming about.
It's like an aquarium everywhere.
There you go.
Yeah.
We'd probably treat the fish nicer. They can be our pets.
Right. Yeah. There's just a lot of logistical issues, isn't there? Like, how do you get food stock in for a restaurant?
Fish all around.
No, but you're not going to put your hand out your window and just grab onto a bit of salmon, are you?
We got seaweed.
I don't think you can eat seaweed.
There's your
There's your $5 a day.
And fish, there's your protein.
Right, yeah. I think if you just ate fish and seaweed, you would die eventually. If it's salty as well. Where are you going to get fresh water from?
Just filter it. Have a kettle in your little tank and boil it from...
So everything we drink has to be boiled? That's effort, isn't it, man? That's a lot of effort. I don't know. Maybe beyond our lifetime, yeah. But to be honest, I can't be asked. I'm quite happy where I am on Earth now. Quite happy with normal air.
Well, especially in England, though, we're running out of space on quite a fast rate. All these people buying land and stuff.
Right.
So why not have a second home in a bit of water?
But also think about the energy demands of trying to heat somewhere underneath the water. You know what I mean? Think about the price of that, cost of living.
But don't heat it.
It's freezing, bro.
Yeah, but you'll get used to it.
Right. I'm sure everyone will be jumping at the opportunity to go and live. By the way, it's cold. You have to boil everything. There's no food.
Well, people can't afford heating bills anyway in London in their little tiny flat right now. Why don't you buy a tank somewhere?
A tank? Underwater? Oh, yeah, a tank. Yeah. I don't know. I think you should pitch it to an MP and see what happens, mate. I wish you the very best of luck.
I'm trying to think far into the future here because with Mars we're going to have to...
We're not going to Mars.
I'm
sorry.
Heat it.
No, I'm sorry. I don't think that's ever going to happen in our lifetime.
So you think the water idea is better instead?
No, I think they're both shit.
No, the water idea is good because it's less risk.
Yeah.
So I want to go into the idea of people having demons, right?
Oh, one of my favourite topics. Yeah.
So the average human has hundreds of bad thoughts a day. Would these bad thoughts count as your demons?
Hmm.
And if so, what are your angels?
Okay, so I think human beings are like half god, half animal in some ways. Because we have all the instincts and all the biological structures that all the animals have that keep us alive and stuff. And we have these drives to survive. But we also have the capacity for higher abstract thought, for religion, for all of these spiritual matters that you see other animals not having, right? So I think we're like, if gods do exist, if higher powers do exist, which I think I believe, then we are the bridge between them and animals, right? And I think human beings, that who you are is that kind of higher self, that part of the divine, what the Buddhists call the Godhead, I believe, right? And however, inside of you, there is negative forces, evil forces, and I call those the demons in your head. And the demons, they're the one that feed you negative thoughts and feed you self-doubt. So our angels, in some sense, is who you really are. And I think we become hijacked by these demons. Yeah.
So is it possible to see demons?
What, in physical world?
Yeah.
Probably not. No. I mean, really, the reason I say demons is because it's something that people can understand. But all I really mean is there's like an evil force inside you. But evil's a strong word, but there's a negative force inside you. There's something that doesn't, like, something that stops you from being a good person at times, or being who you want to be, and kind of externalizing that concept to a character or a figure like a demon that people understand makes more sense than just saying, oh, your negative thoughts come from some weird source inside of you.
So could you not see those spirits through a hallucination? Would that not?
Potentially. I mean, I know that people who have like psychedelic trips and they're in like a bad headspace have bad trips, because that's what the hallucinations. If you're thinking about psychedelics, those hallucinations are just reflections of what's happening in your brain neurochemically when you take that substance. So, in a sense, yeah, maybe when you have a bad trip, it shows you your mental state. And if your mind is run by negative forces, run by demons, more than it's run by the divine, then maybe you'll see scary, evil things. And on the other side of that, if you have a nice trip and you see beautiful things, maybe it shows there's more of that divine energy inside of you than the demons. Yeah.
I'd have thought as well that could a real life angel be the perfect woman? That's your partner.
What do you mean? So what if I meet my ideal woman, she'd be an angel?
Your angel, because I feel like you're in a lot of situations you're better with another person than you're on your own.
I'd agree. Yeah. I mean, we're social animals, aren't we? I think that. What do I think? I think your ideal person has divinity in them like you do. You know, maybe when you meet that person, they bring out the divine from you. It's not necessarily that they're like some mystical angel that's just landed on Earth. Like, I think it's more like you meet someone, and when it resonates and when you connect, they bring out all the good in you, or they bring out more of the good in you that was there when you're on your own, which I think what you're alluding to when you say you're better with someone else. Because sometimes it takes talking to another person or being with another person to quieten the demons and bring out more of the good stuff.
Also, you know how people say, oh, it's my other half? It's almost like you two are very connected.
That's an interesting phrase, that, because when people say that, and everyone just is like, yeah, that's normal, but your other half, so without them you're just half a person. It's interesting, isn't it? And your whole life you were searching for this piece that wasn't there. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I've never really been in love.
And on the other way, could that other half be your demon?
If you're in an abusive relationship, probably. Yeah, maybe that's the thing then. Maybe when you're in a bad relationship, an abusive relationship, their demons attach onto you, or because really that's what they're doing. When someone does something horrible to someone else, they're like possessed by demons, right? I don't think anyone is innately evil. okay, I think we all have the capacity to be evil, and we all have the capacity to be really good. It depends which voice we listen to. And maybe the people that are mean and are abusive, they're ran by their demons. And on top of that, they might cause the other person that they're abusing to be kind of to be unsettled by their demons more often.
Hence, the 10th law of power: avoid the unfortunate and unhappy.
I mean, you know, it's like you meet people and you can just tell some people they're negative, man.
So they reflect their demons onto you.
Yeah, in some ways, yeah, they latch onto you. I feel like that often happens as well with parents and children. So if you've got a parent who's got deep trauma from whatever happened to them in the past, that's kind of a demon that they've picked up throughout their life, and maybe they got that from their parents or whatever, but then they pass it on to their kid.
So how do you get over that trauma?
Doing self-work, probably. Yeah, realizing that you have demons. I think everyone, the first step to, I mean, you can never get rid of them. They never leave, because if you didn't have demons, then you'd be a god, and humans aren't gods. Do you know what I'm saying? But the first step to managing your demons, say that's the better word to use, is noticing that they're there. And I think most people don't even realise that a lot of the time their whole life are run by their demons.
But everyone has demons, right?
100%, yeah. I mean, there was a guy called Alexander Solzhenitsyn. He wrote the Gulag Archipelago, which is a massive 3-volume book about the Soviet Union and the forced labour camps going on there. And he said this quote, which I love, and that's that the line between good and evil runs through the heart of every man. And I think it's true. I think everyone has that. Everyone has negative forces inside them and positive forces inside them. And it's what you look at and what you focus on in you and what you try and manage. That's how you deal with being human, how you deal with the weird, complex experience we're having now.
Yin yang.
Exactly. That's exactly it, yeah. Yin yang is amazing, that. You look at it and think, oh, it's just a black thing and a white thing with a white spot on it and a black spot on it. No. What yin yang is saying is that the whole of reality, the whole of human experience has chaos and order, good and evil in it. Male, female, all of that is intrinsic. This like polar opposite forces. That's what our lives live upon. Just like the fact that it's impossible, whatever you do, wherever you are, whoever you are, you can't live a life that's just good. You can't live a life that's just happy or just exciting or just you're just enthusiastic about your life. That's not possible, because the good always comes with the bad, and you can't avoid that. That's literally the structure of reality, is that yin and yang, good and evil thing.
So it's supposed to represent 2 serpents, is it? And then there's like a dot inside each of the sides of the serpents.
I mean, this is where, I'm not really sure. I guess it could be a snake, but it's interesting that, isn't it, that you could say you've got the line of, like, let's say, one side's the good and one side's the bad. The dot in the opposite side is showing that even in the darkness and the negative there is good, and also even in the good there is some negative there. Yeah, I mean, I just, when I kind of realised that idea of like everything is good and everything is bad, that was quite weirdly life-changing.
Are you familiar with the idea of the story of the Pandora's box?
No.
It's quite similar, I think, to the Adam and Eve story.
Right.
About the serpent, doesn't it? It's like a snake, and it.
I know the Adam and Eve one better. That the snake was representing Satan, and the snake convinced Eve to eat the forbidden fruit, which gave them knowledge of good and evil. And then they realised they were human, and then they developed self-consciousness.
I think Pandora's box is like a Greek version, and that's about someone, or it could be Egyptian, someone who opened a box and let out everything that was like.
Just like in the way that Adam and Eve ate the fruit, and then they had all the knowledge of good and evil, and they tried to like be a god, basically.
I mean, without that, without the badness. Life wouldn't really be worth it, though.
Life's awful. This is something that I wish more people understood, and I wish I understood earlier, is that a life without suffering is shit. Let's imagine it, right, for a moment. Let's say you had no problems ever, no obstacles to overcome. I don't, that setting could look different to anyone. It could be a cocktail on the side of a pool, or it could be unlimited sexual partners, or it could be unlimited money and material goods, right? You get to that point where you had no pain in your life at all, you would want some kind of struggle. You would want some kind of obstacle to overcome. You'd want to die, realistically. If you woke up and everything was as you wanted it to be, it would not be good.
That's the struggle with raising a child when you're rich.
Yeah.
And a lot of people get that wrong. They become too comfortable.
I heard Peterson say a thing once which was really interesting, and he was talking about how obviously you don't want your loved ones to go through unnecessary suffering, but then it's like, how much suffering do you save them from before actually you're depriving them of growth? It's weird that, because you see kids that have such comfy upbringings, they're not really comfortable with them when they go out into the real world, and they're in their kind of parents' shadow forever. It's a weird thing.
Some people do get it right though. You get one successful father and the daughter's successful, and I mean they have networks and connections, but there has to be some level of discipline there.
Yeah. I mean, what's interesting is pain is so horrible, but so necessary, and that's a hard thing to get your head around. Like, how could something so horrible be so necessary? So
should you embrace that pain?
Yeah. I think in life it's much better to voluntarily enter some kind of pain than let. I think that pain and suffering is inevitable, okay? But you can choose your pain and you can choose your suffering. If you don't choose it, it gets chosen for you, okay? And I'll put an example in, like, health, right? You can say going to the gym and eating healthily is painful or a bit of suffering because you've got to go through discomfort. You've got to go and work out when you don't want to, or you've got to eat vegetables when you'd want to eat nicer food, right? But if you don't pick that pain, you don't pick that suffering, you might then start getting overweight in your 50s or 60s. Then you might have heart problems, you might have diabetes, you might not be able to move around much, you'll have that even more of a sedentary lifestyle, and then these negative outcomes will compound, and that suffering, that pain is picked for you. So that's a small example, and I think you can extrapolate that to everything else in life. I think you pick your suffering rather than let the world pick the suffering for you, if you know what I mean.
What about the situation in school where the kid's getting bullied for being fat, but with that he can either improve and get better, or he takes it the bad way and kills himself?
I think it depends on the character of the kid, and that's a really interesting one, because here's the thing, right? I'll get a bit vulnerable here. So throughout the ages of probably like 10 to 16, I never really liked my body, and I'm not even talking like to do with my disability, my cerebral palsy or anything in my legs, just like generally like just having that kind of kid like puppy fat that you have. And that stemmed from, I was 10 years old and I played wheelchair basketball, right? And I started been playing since I was like 8 years old, and I did a trial for the regional team around me when I was like 10, and I went with this other guy that I knew, who was a friend of mine, and we did this session, and then his mum had filmed some of the training session on her iPad, right? And then we were in the van or the car on the way home, and we were watching some of the videos of just like the training session, just having a laugh or whatever. And there was one point where I was past the ball in the session, and my friend goes, "Oh, here's Fatty," right? As a joke, obviously, right? Or I thought it must have been a joke because I wasn't overweight, don't get me wrong. But as soon as he said that, something in my soul was like, cut, man. It was like, oh, there was some deep pain there. I was like, oh. And then from that moment on, really, I was quite conscious about my weight and stuff. And like I'm saying, I wasn't fat, I wasn't proper overweight, but that general like just having rolls and being a bit chunky as a kid, I didn't like. And I think that's what drives me to go to the gym now. Maybe that's the demon that makes me go to the gym and wants to be in shape. So in some sense, maybe if he hadn't made that not very nice comment that then gave me a little bit of emotional pain, I would not be trying to get in shape now in the gym. So maybe the kid who is overweight, maybe he needs a little shove. I'm not saying hurt him, but I would much rather have that experience I had being a kid and getting hurt emotionally like that than not been told that and told that it's absolutely fine how I am, and then maybe I gain more weight in the future. Who knows? It's a weird situation to navigate, and I don't know the answer.
It's like how Goggins says, I'd rather tell you the truth and you hate me, but you get better, than lie to you.
My mum's always said, I'd rather have a painful truth than a beautiful lie. Yeah, it's true.
Going back as well, I think Peterson said something like, put out flames before they get bigger. And dealing with your pain is deal with it now before it gets bigger and affects you later in life.
There's a quote that says, like, the things that you resist, they persist, they continue. If you don't confront it. You know, we have the phrase in England that's been brushed under the carpet. What does that mean? Exactly.
Swept under the rug.
Yeah, when people say something's been brushed under the carpet, like something you don't want to look at, then that dust is going to keep filling up, and soon there's a monster underneath the carpet that you don't know how to deal with. You know, and if you dealt with it when it was a bit of dust, then maybe you'd have been alright. You know.
I hope this is not just me. So when you close your eyes and it's dark and you're sleeping, there's still colour there.
Yeah.
But it's black. However, if I go outside or even here, look at the sun, it's red or yellow.
When you close your eyes.
You still got the whole. You still see the colours.
Right. Yeah.
It's not just nothing. How is that possible for the colour from the sun to get underneath my eyelids?
Well, your eyelids aren't like a super, I think the word's opaque, like block. Light still gets through. So when you close your eyes and the sun's beaming down on you, that's what you see, is you see the light that's passing through your eyelids. The one that's more interesting is when it's dark and you close your eyes. Sometimes I can see like weird, like purpley green colours, yellow colours, like flowering.
I feel like you can manipulate them as well.
It's weird. Yeah, I remember as a kid, this is so weird, but I used to like, when it was like night time in bed, I'd like close my eyes and I'd like put pressure on one eye, like for a while, and then you get like green. I mean, I can see them now. You get like green and blue and everything, and it's weird. I don't quite know what that is. It must be something to do with putting pressure on your eye. But yeah, it's weird, especially in a dark room where there's no light going into your eye.
Or is it just your imagination coming up with colours rather than
could be
the outside world?
Yeah, we don't really know. Yeah.
But can you see shapes as well? Because I sort of can.
Not like shapes in like, you know, that's a dinosaur or that's a table.
Sort of squares, circles, basic stuff.
To me, it's like flowers, or if you got like a white piece of paper and you dropped like a bit of yellow paint on it very slow, and you watch that in slow motion, and the paint drop lands on the paper and then the paint spreads out, the colour spreads out. I see that sometimes when like a bit of purple or blue will come up and spread out underneath my eyelid. But I don't know if everyone else has that. I've just had that, you know, seen it a few times.
Could that translate into your dream?
Maybe. I don't know.
That could be the part of the canvas, and then it starts moving.
But when you dream, what do you see? Like, how do you view? Are you like first person in your dream, and then you see like everything, a kind of a film going on around you, or do you see you from like a third person perspective?
Like, I think I'm always first person.
Yeah, I think I am too. But yeah, it's like interesting you say that, the canvas of the dream. Yeah, I'm not sure.
You said on your recent video, your dreams can tell the future.
Well, I said that the dream is where your unconscious mind speaks to you about maybe decisions you should make in the future. Or like it shows you a potential future. Possibly. I don't think it's like a fortune teller.
Have you had a situation where that's happened?
Yeah, a few times, a few small things. Like I told you about one the other week with like basketball, where I wasn't sure whether I wanted to continue playing. This was around like the lockdowns and stuff, where there wasn't any training. And I dreamt that I was at a training session, all the lights went out and I couldn't see and couldn't play. That's kind of a small example. But also, I think you dream about... If I have a dream that's to do with my life and I can see how it's to do with my life, it's like a stress dream. So like I'll have... so, you know, we're doing A-level exams at the moment, and the night before my biology exam on Wednesday this week, I had a dream that I wasn't like, I couldn't focus in the paper because it got to a point about an hour in where everyone just started talking. We all just decided we were just going to make noise, and the invigilators couldn't do anything because there was like 100 of us and like 5 of them. And then because everyone was talking, I couldn't focus and answer my questions. So that was like maybe a stress dream of like reflecting that my unconscious is worried about the exam more than I'd like to admit, and things like that. Yeah, I guess I dream about people. Sometimes, yeah, see like, I know I've heard from other people having quite vivid dreams about things in their life. Like my mum's had dreams about her father as he was getting ill, and things that, you know, he wished he'd maybe said to her in his life in a dream. It's all quite odd like that.
Under the state of psychedelics, you can have entities tell you stuff about yourself. That's like into your future, what you need to do, the state that you're at right now. Could being under psychedelics be a position where you're somewhat dreaming?
Yeah. Maybe it's the same force that tries to communicate with you in dreams does communicate you in a psychedelic state, because something else comes out of you when you have psychedelics. Like psychedelics, the hallucinations you see when you look around you, that's to do with changes within you, not changes within the outside world. It's how you view it, right? So maybe the same force that tries to communicate with you during a dream also tries to communicate with you by changing what you see in the outside world through psychedelics. Yeah, I definitely think there's a part of us that we aren't aware of that is trying to speak with us, and it's part of us. And that's the unconscious. Yeah. You know, they definitely think. Yeah.
And what is that part?
I don't necessarily know what it is, but I think it's just something to do with being human. Maybe it's like that divine self I was talking about at the beginning. You know, maybe we have the best version of ourselves underneath, like within us, and the purpose of life is to go out and peel all the layers off, peel all the insecurities, the anxieties, and find that deeper self that's there. I don't know. It's interesting. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I've heard when I hear theories about the unconscious, there's so many out there that I don't know. Like Freud says that that's where all your drives are, and your motivations.
Define the unconscious to me. Is it yourself that's not?
So I'll try and the theory I know the best is Freud's. The theory I like the most is Jung's, but I don't think I'm smart enough to explain Jung's theory in great detail. So I'll go with Freud's, right? Freud said that the mind was like an iceberg, okay? In that icebergs, you see about 10 to 15% of it above the surface of the water, and there's like 85-90% of it underneath the water, right? He said that the majority of the things we do are due to unconscious drives, and these unconscious drives are often picked up during childhood, right? And he said that there are 3 main parts of the psyche, right? There's the id, the superego, and the ego, right? The id is like your pleasure principle, okay? And I'm going to put this in terms that teenage boys would understand, okay? So your id's a pleasure principle. The id is what makes you want to wank, right? That's your id, okay? It's that sexual drive, that drive for pleasure, okay? Then you've got your superego, right? Which is your moral principle. So your idea of right and wrong. And a lot of people that don't like the fact that they masturbate will get this kind of, oh, you shouldn't be doing this. You know, I mean, this is not moral. This is not nice. Whatever, right? And the superego and the id are mostly unconscious. The id is completely unconscious. And you've got the ego, which is your conscious self, right? Not the ego in terms of like people who think they're better than everyone else. This is ego as in like the you that knows itself, that you experience the world as. And when the id and the superego have conflicting viewpoints, the ego feels anxiety. So, for example, your id drives you to masturbate, right? Then you have a wank, and that post-nut clarity, that's your superego, and that's your ego's anxiety, is that feeling you get when you kind of roll over and it's like, why did I do that? That's ego anxiety. That's what Freud said. The unconscious was the id and the superego, yeah.
So everyone has an unconscious. Is that factual? Or is that sort of a
What's a
theory?
fact, man? It's hard to study, isn't it?
Fact is the truth.
Because Freud used to, have clients and stuff that he'd do psychotherapy with or psychoanalysis with, and he'd like interpret the things that they said to do with like, this is your id. But I think when I've been sat in lessons learning this stuff, it kind of relates, just like the example I used there. Or you can think about it in terms of like food, right? You see something unhealthy, your id wants it because it's calories, it's sugar, it's fat, it's salt. But your superego goes, but I don't want to put on any weight and I want to be healthy. And then maybe you eat that McDonald's and afterwards you feel regret. That's your ego having anxiety because your superego and id wanted two different things.
Can your conscious control your unconscious?
Maybe. I think...
Because it's like winning the battle with yourself. Could that possibly be it?
I think not learning about this kind of stuff and relating it to examples in your own life is very helpful. I think you can. I think I've said to you before. I think if there is a meaning to life, it's to win the battle within yourself. It's to overcome those drives at the things you didn't want to do, and to understand it and manage it. Just like we said at the beginning about managing your demons. I mean, really, all these theories that are put together. My one's the demon one, but Freud's one was id and superego. It's kind of all explaining the same thing. And the fundamental thing is that there are parts of you aren't aware of, and there are parts of you that aren't you that drive your behaviour, which is weird.
But what defines you?
I think you is who you are when you're very present, and the best version of you is you, really. I read a book called The Chimp Paradox by Dr. Steve Peters, and I want to give it to you because it's a good book. And he says, he really simplifies some like psychology stuff down to the fact that in our brains there's a human and there's a chimpanzee, right? And the chimpanzee are like the really deep brain structures that are like the same structures that like lobsters have, for example. And that you are your human, which is like your ability to have abstract thinking and strive towards goals and do good for your community. You are the human, but you get hijacked by your chimp, and your chimp wants things like status and high calorie foods and sex and territory and things like that, right? And I think in a similar way to that you, at the end of the day, your core of your humanity is good, the best version of you, and yet the price that we pay to live in this world is that we have these forces inside of us that can kind of stop us from being our best self. I think that's what you are. Then that's why it's a good way of looking at it, because then you have this belief that everyone fundamentally is good. They just get hijacked by malevolence or stupidity or whatever it is. But at the core, people are good. I think I like to believe that.
So everyone has a chimp inside of them.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. Yeah, and you see it in people, when you're having an argument with someone, you're not talking like you're human beings. You're talking like you're two chimpanzees shouting at each other.
Do you think when you're younger you're mainly just chimpanzee and then you grow to be controlling?
Yeah, I think because kids are less likely to control their impulses, aren't they? And I think that's what the chimp is. It's all those instincts, those impulses, those desires.
Do you think there should be a filter on being yourself?
What do you mean, like who you present to the world type thing? Like how much you filter from who you really are to who you present to the world? I think we're all actors, aren't we? Anyone who says they're not acting, I don't trust it, man, because you are to everyone, even in small little ways. I think it is necessary. It's necessary to just live in a society that functions harmoniously. Everyone just kind of has to conform a little bit, I mean, Shakespeare said, one of my favourite quotes is that all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players. And I feel that in some way. I feel like whoever I am is an act, but it's necessary to do that to experience life. And whatever's beyond, this is getting really weird and philosophical and sociological, but Joel Clifton to me is just a construct, right? Joel Clifton is just a label that's been given to my meat vehicle. It's not me. But Joel Clifton is the person I am in the world, but it's not me. I'm the guy that's behind Joel Clifton, living out, I'm experiencing life. But Joel Clifton's like the vessel that I have to go out into life with, if that makes sense. Bit weird, but yeah. I read a book called The Untethered Soul, which kind of went along those lines, and it said that like you should view your eyes like you're watching a film, but like a first-person film, and really you're the observer deep in that, and everything else that happens is just part of the show, which is quite a nice way of looking at things.
So what happens when that show ends?
I think the part of whoever I really am underneath Joel Clifton lives on. But maybe I don't know that.
Spirit.
Yeah. And when you're born again as another person, I think maybe you forget everything in the past. Don't know. We're getting spiritual there and unscientific, which people might not like, but...
One of my biggest fears is living forever.
Ooh. Yeah, I'd never want to be immortal.
But if that's the case, you just live on. Your soul lives on.
No, because if let's say for a second that the soul is this immortal force that then continues after you die. When I come into another existence, my soul that is, I won't remember being Joel Clifton. Like you can only live this life once. So even if there is a soul that goes into the afterlife, you probably won't be conscious of it. No.
Then what's the point?
The point is to be here, my friend. The point is to experience this life and see what the hell happens. You know, the spiritual people in my life kind of say that we have a soul contract in every life that we lead. So we're born, and there's something we have to learn here.
And what does that soul contract mean?
The soul contract means like you'll be born in a specific place at a specific time as a specific person. And whatever comes with that is part of the learning that your soul has to go through. So, like, think about it, right? It's so... I think it's... Maybe you could argue that it's some way that people rationalise, like, the injustice in the fact that we're just born randomly. Like, it's absolutely by chance, apparently, that we were born in England in comfortable families where, you know, we're not extra rich, but we don't worry about when our next meal's going to be, and we don't worry about not having a roof over our head. And that we've been born there rather than in some developing country in like Africa or whatever, where we've got barely any food. There's more viruses around. If you know the life expectancy is much lower. How has that happened? And I think maybe the way we've rationalised it in the spiritual world is that that's a soul contract you get and something you have to learn through that. I don't know.
Now, people that just think black and white, explain to me the 1 in quadrillion chance of being born.
It's unreal, isn't it? I think I did the maths once. Something like there's an 8 million... No, even more than that. I think it's like 8 billion to 1 chance that you exist. Because... Or even more than that. Because think about it, right? We were all sperm cells. Well, we were all half sperm, half egg cell in our mum, right? But if we think about it just on the sperm level... So half of our genetic information was in a sperm. One little sperm cell. That was in... an ejaculation that had millions of other sperm cells in. So firstly, we had to win that race to get to go and fertilise the egg. Secondly, right, you had to make sure that you were in that ejaculation out of all the ejaculations your dad had in his entire life. And if you do the maths on that, with every time your dad came, he released millions of sperm, and you were lucky enough to be in that ejaculation and win that race, the numbers get ridiculous. It's almost infinite.
So what could happen with the other ones that don't make it?
They die, don't they?
But is that an actual person?
See, it's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, it is, really. If you look at it genetically, yeah, it's another person.
I reckon it's a lie.
It's interesting, isn't it? When you actually crack the numbers like that, it's like... There's something going on here that's fishy. I've said it to you before. Like, the more I learn about science, the more I'm like... Did this happen by chance, though? Did it, though? Nah. You know?
Some probabilities are too extreme.
It is, isn't it? It's like... Yeah, it's odd. It does, I don't know. Then we can get really woo and be like, everything happens for a reason and that. But I don't... It boggles my brain, man. So that's why I kind of prefer to believe in higher power than just like concrete science and everything, because it's more interesting that way.
But we are half God then.
Yeah, I'd say so. It's a nice way to live, isn't it? Even if it's wrong, that's something that I say to people. Like, then they go, "Do you believe in God?" I'm like, "Yeah," and they're like, "God doesn't exist." I'm like, "Okay, but it's better to live like He does, because then you'll be a good person."
A friend of mine called Adam had a saying where he'd say, "I'm temporarily immortal."
Why?
It's that half God side inside of you.
You're temporarily immortal.
And it's good to live like that.
Yeah.
To an extent.
I think it's good to live as if God exists.
There's a lot of benefits, isn't there?
Yeah. Yeah. You have this. You want to do good, and it's better that than be like life's meaningless and being cynical, and that's not good.
Because
at
you
all.
can go down that route and be like, what's the point if I'm going to die? What's the point in anything if I'm going to die? I zone out every day for like 1 to 5 minutes, at least once. Why do we zone out and what happens?
Where do you go when you zone out? Do you think about other things, or do you just go like...
think about other things. It's almost like I'm staring at something, but my vision is in a different place.
I can't tell you, that I've researched why this happens, but my theory would be it's just like your imagination goes somewhere else. It's like you're dreaming while you're awake in some ways, because we're always dreaming all the time. If you think about it in that, you're always anticipating future events, and you're always thinking about the past. So if anyone who tries to be present for any significant period of time finds that it's pretty impossible. You're always thinking about what's happened in the past or what might happen in the future. I mean, I'm pretty present right now because I'm talking to you. But let's say we weren't having a chat and I was just looking about, thinking, I'd go to what happened in the past or what happened in the future. So I think that's just what happens. We just do that as humans.
Walking down the road, you can be like 25% present, and then your mind's 75% on other stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Yeah, it's weird that. Yeah.
So we're never truly present.
No, I don't think we can ever be truly present. Sam Harris always says, and I like this phrase, that like we're always peering over the shoulder of the present moment. So, yes, I'm wanting to. I feel quite present now talking to you because I'm having to, think and speak on my feet, right? But if I just try and sit and stare at a wall and be present for more than a couple of seconds, it's difficult, and my mind will be jumping to, what am I doing in an hour's time? How did today go? What happened? What am I going to be doing tomorrow? What's this fantasy I want to live out? Imagine this predicted future. It's interesting that.
So why do we zone out?
Because I think thinking about the future and the past, really, even though it's not very helpful to be present in this moment and appreciate this life, it's very, very useful. Especially if you think about it evolutionarily, right? If you're having these like drifting thoughts towards the future or the past, you're learning or anticipating stuff. If we had no idea of the future or no idea of the past and we were only in the present moment, we'd have probably died off because we wouldn't have put things in place to protect us against like the threats. Do you know what I mean?
What about the people that are like, oh, I just live in the moment?
Yeah, you don't. It's a fucking lie. It's just something you put in your Instagram in it to look cool. The only person who are actually in present moments are like the Tibetan monks that spend hours and hours and hours sat meditating. Do you know what I mean? They're the only people that are truly present. Because I've meditated like on and off by properly, doing it seriously. I try and meditate every day, but there was a time when I was doing like 30 minutes every morning for like a few months, and it's so difficult to be present, man. It's unreal.
So when you're meditating, is that how you find true presence?
I think that's how you try and practice what it feels like to be present. But I think you could meditate for 6 months and never truly get a moment of true presence. I think even when you do, it's glimpses where the inner chatter inside you kind of stops and you stop seeing images or having thoughts.
I mean, I think you do have these moments where for a short amount of time you do feel the pure presence and you're just like, I'm alive.
I mean, I'll tell you one place I would say people do live in the moment is when they're in like a flow state doing something. So like maybe they play sport, or they are really creative and like art, or they're really academic and they like doing work or whatever. When you're in that state and you're not thinking about anything else, maybe you are truly present.
So is it a very good thing to be truly present?
Yes. I think life is much more satisfying that way. When you've like you've had times when you're doing work and an hour goes by and it felt like 10 minutes. I think afterwards you're like, that was amazing. I was fully in that state. You've obviously got to think about the future and the past because that's useful. It's good to learn from the past and anticipate the future. But all we're trying to do to be happy really is be present and be grateful with the present.
And you improve your presence by meditating and just being solely concentrated on something, hence not checking your phone distractions.
Being mindful, yeah. Yeah, and meditation at the end of the day is just the easiest way to practice being mindful. But you can be, you know, I feel pretty mindful right now because I'm not thinking about much else than our conversation. And I'm quite mindful when I'm in the gym because I'm just focusing on how it feels to do this exercise. You know, how many reps am I going for the next set, things like that. So, yeah, I think that's it. It's being aware of what's going on around you, self-awareness, mindfulness. And it's come quite cliche, like that's one of the things that everyone, as you see all these tips of like how to have good mental health, it's like be more mindful. But it sounds quite cringe, but I think it's really important, you know.
That's why people want to be more peaceful, move away from the stress of the cities.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, every single time you're stressed, or every single time you do something you regret, it's because you weren't present. That is exactly it. Whenever I find myself, I've spent an hour scrolling on YouTube when I didn't want to, because I wasn't present. You know.
I don't like stressed people.
No.
I think there's absolutely no point in it.
No. With certain emotions, only hurt the person who experiences them, and stress is kind of one of those. You know.
It's like you see Thomas Shelby. So some guys that have an absolute go at him,
and he's chill,
and trying to kill him.
Yeah,
He's gun to his head, and he's completely calm.
Yeah. Sigma male. Yeah. No, but I think it's true. Like stress. If you know, stress in some ways can be helpful because it makes you focus. But if we're talking about unnecessary stress, it's not useful, is it? I think about it in like the exams that we've been doing at the moment. Getting stressed about an exam isn't helpful. I mean, maybe if it makes you revise, yeah, you could argue that maybe it's a little bit helpful. But in the majority of the time, unnecessary stress is as, you know, by definition unnecessary.
Some people say though that feeling anxious, which is quite similar to stress, means that you care about it.
Right. There is theories that, like, we looked at in memory, that we were looking at the accuracy of eyewitness testimony, which is where like you see a crime and then you go to a police station and the police interview about the crime as a witness and you state what you saw, and they were looking at the accuracy of it, right? And the conclusions were that a little bit of anxiety makes memory better, but too much anxiety makes it worse. And I feel like maybe life is similar to that, in that you want a little bit of stress, you want a little bit of struggle, you want a little bit of anxiety, but too much is too much. And where that line is different for different people, of how much they can handle. Yeah.
There are a lot of people that are quite successful though that manage a lot of stress.
I don't think it's good for
I
them.
think it's a skill though to manage a high level of stress, like entrepreneurs.
But I tell you what, I don't envy those people. No. I wouldn't trade feeling psychologically stable for any amount of money.
They say a lot in the 40 Laws of Power about acting emotionally, and that is a weakness because that emotion drives you to act in that way.
See, this is where I get a bit mixed up, because on one hand I agree that you shouldn't be controlled by your emotions, but on the other hand I think you shouldn't be a cold. I think there's a time and a place, you know. It's like I don't think people would like the fact that I fall in the middle between, yes, I feel like you should be disciplined and do things when you don't want to do it, but I also think if you need to cry, you cry. You know what I mean? But you just do it at the right time.
So it comes with men thinking that they can't be emotional.
Yeah, I think you just got to do it in the right way. Like, there's a difference between being a pussy and processing your emotions. You know, if you're crying every 5 seconds about things that aren't that deep, that's a whole different thing. But if you've genuinely, you know, yes, you have to sometimes work through your emotions, or maybe you don't feel good, but you still have to go hit the gym or go do what you need to do. I strongly believe in that. But also, if you're truly upset, repressing is not good. You got to let that out, man. You got to cry. And if that wastes a day, Well, that's not a waste of a day actually, because you go and you're processing that emotion. So if you've got to spend a day crying, maybe you do, because then the next day you'll wake up and you'll be like, oh, I needed that.
Well, I think Robert Greene uses it in the times of war and challenging opponents and stuff. When you act emotionally against an enemy, it makes you throw out and go down the wrong path, which mess up your strategies.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about competition and stuff, you can't be swayed by emotions, no. But in the entire
sort of like when you're taking a free throw.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, or but just sport in general, or anything like that. I think if you have to be focused and you have to do something difficult, no, it's not good to listen to your emotions. But there's certainly a time and place where you need to go through how you feel. You need to speak to someone.
And really, that execution is just about keeping a clear head.
Yeah, it's far better to process your emotions and set time to think about things, talk to people about things, express things, than bottle it up, because then that comes back, like we said earlier, you brush it under the carpet. What you resist persists. That's why I still journal, especially when I've had something quite emotionally deep. I'll write about it, and then after I feel alright.
You still doing monk mode?
Not really. What is monk mode, man? You see it thrown around a lot. I feel like it's like a fad term.
Is it like an actual popular term?
In
self-help
community. Self-help community, yeah. I don't know. Now I'm at a point where I'm like, I quite like the monk life like existence, but it can't. Everything at the extreme is not good. So like, I still meditate in the morning, and I still journal in the evening, and I still don't like loads of instant gratification because it don't make me feel good. But I'm not going to be monk mode in the fact that I'm going to go on holiday, I'm going to socialise, I'm going to have a bottle of cider every so often.
What do you think of monks?
I think they're sick, mate.
Well, what's the life that they live? What's their daily routine?
Oh, it's crazy.
Is it just praying?
I listened to an audiobook once called Think Like a Monk by a guy who was a monk for a while, and then he wrote a self-help book basically saying how modern people can apply stuff that he learnt as a monk to their life. And it was quite interesting. But it's basically they get up at 4 a.m, go and meditate for 3 hours on their own, and then they'll eat some breakfast, and then they'll meditate as a group for another few hours. And then they'll have some lunch, and then they'll just do work around the monastery, cleaning stuff, creating stuff, training if they're fit, ones that do fighting, martial arts and stuff. It's a very weird, it's a very weird existence. They basically, it's called asceticism, which is where you basically rid your life of pleasure, and that's what they do. They kind of devote their whole life to God, in some sense. It's crazy, man. There's part of me that wants to spend a week or two of my life at a monastery, see how I'd get on. Because they're present, man. I bet they're proper present. But then they don't really do anything. Do you know what I mean? If a monk went to go and do something a bit more fun that we would consider more fun, I feel like, could they still be present? If you take a monk to a nightclub, what would he do? Well, it's true, though, isn't it? Would he just look about and be like, oh, it's alright? Or would he get involved in dance? I don't know, because that's the thing. If I spent 5 hours a day sitting about, and then in the afternoon I worked at a monastery, I'd probably be very present, man.
Whereas if you took someone like a tribe to the club, they'd jump, they'd dance.
Yeah, proper a proper indigenous tribe that doesn't have the internet and stuff.
I'd rather live tribal than like a monk.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the tribe, but yeah, I agree with you. A more primal lifestyle, yeah.
Because a monk doesn't have those sources of happiness.
No. What about a tribe that they have horrible initiations, when you get to age 11 or 12 as a boy, that they leave you in the forest, and if you survive, then you can become a man.
Survival of the fittest. I mean.
Yeah.
I'm all for survival of the fittest.
Yeah, that's interesting.
All I'm saying, you've got connections. Let's do it.
Well, yeah,
with a tribe.
We could do it for a period of life,
yeah.
But I've got to establish myself here first.
Only for a short amount of time.
Yeah. Maybe in my 30s or something.
But a monk at the club, what would they do?
I don't think they'd be getting down to
I think they'd have a wander, talk to everyone.
I don't think they. Well, yeah. I think they'd be quite an attraction, wouldn't they? Everyone would have their phones out, filming them, taking selfies with the monk.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. Maybe it'd be a good social experiment. Take a monk to a nightclub. Oh.
Wait, what religion is a monk?
There's a few. So you've got Christian monks, and you've got Buddhist monks, and you've probably got Hindu monks. I don't know. But basically, they're any religion. But the ones that are probably most famous are the Buddhist monks.
Is it? But their day is literally just the same. I mean, it's the same with a tribal person, but apparently people in tribes, they're not really doing anything, so the whole time they're just making each other laugh.
I think it'd be nice. It's just like hanging out with the boys. I mean, it's obviously difficult because you've got to hunt your own food and stuff. But there's a part of it, the camaraderie must be amazing. And the lack of technology. Even though technology is amazing and it's given us so many things, it'd be interesting to see what life's like without it.
Well, technology, Chris Williams said, was the most amazing and worst thing at the same time.
Yeah, it's weird that, yeah. I'd like to try it for a while, but I'm not very good at, I wouldn't be good at sleeping outside, man. I value my sleep too much. You know, I want a bed, man.
The nice thing with tribes is you're just constantly around the people that you love, doing stuff with them, and
the brotherhood.
No stresses, really.
Yeah. Well, you'd still stress, like, if there was an enemy tribe coming to kill you, or, you know, you don't have any food and stuff. But if you were a tribe and there was a lot of food about, be alright.
What do you think would happen if they look at, like, I don't know what you call it, a tribal person's brain?
Probably similar to ours, but they might be a little bit better in certain regions, like if you're a tribesman that hunts or whatever, your abilities to, like, jump and attack things probably be better. I don't know really. Probably similar, but we might have a few different things. Like, we might have more developed language than them because we're just surrounded by books and audio and stuff like that. But then they speak to each other all the time, so I don't know.
Do animals have a right and wrong?
Yes, because there are different levels of right and wrong. There was a guy called Kohlberg, and he created a hierarchy of moral reasoning. Okay, there's the pre-conventional level, which is where you act based on your kind of reward versus risk thinking, and you'll act immorally potentially as long as you think you won't get caught or the consequences won't fall on you. There's conventional level, which is what most people have, where you act for the greatest good for the greatest number. You kind of do things that are best for society as a whole. And you've got post-conventional morality, which is where you might have more abstract moral principles, where you might break some moral boundaries to do something that's a higher moral. So let's say you have a family member who's terminally ill, or they're going to die, so then, you know, they're very ill, and there's a medication that would cure their illness, but you can't afford it, but you think it's worth stealing that medication to save your family member, which is like you're breaking a moral law because you shouldn't steal things, but also you're doing something good in that you're saving a life. So, and I think animals have pre-conventional morality, so they just act based on, like, will I get caught? Will my owner be angry at me? Those kind of things.
Is that risk versus reward?
Yeah, kind of. But they're not consciously thinking about it. They'll just be like, they might learn from past experience. They might be like, well, if I eat this food, then I get ill, or I do this thing, then my owner gets annoyed at me.
But are there, like, punishments in the animal world?
Yeah, like pain, bro. Pain and suffering, and when, you know, they still have anger with each other. And
but if, so, say one animal does something to another, will the whole group just be like, oh, that's out of order?
Yeah, probably, yeah. They're not, like, having conversations being like, this guy did this. But certainly, especially in, like, very social animal groups, you know, like a chimpanzee or something.
Wolves.
Yeah, well, if someone acts out of line.
So could that be, is there sort of stealing in the animal world?
Probably.
Stealing other people's resources.
Yeah. There's probably, like, maybe, you know, a pack of hyenas catch a whatever to kill a lion maybe or something, and then they have to eat that lion. If someone's taking the share of the food that shouldn't be, that isn't in that point in the hierarchy, then yeah, they'll probably get attacked or shouted at or whatever. Yeah, certainly. But yeah, animals do have a sense of right and wrong, because if they didn't, you'd see a lot more animals doing things out of line.
With that, I think we cut to the jingle with.
I think it's time for AI news.
AI
AI news. AI news. AI news. So, somewhere in Scotland, there's a scarecrow knocking about on the farm.
A scarecrow.
Now, it's not just any scarecrow.
Is it a robot scarecrow?
It's an AI scarecrow.
That's cap. That's
They've
not
tried out.
real. Right.
Hey, listen to it, yeah? So, it does the normal things. Stops the birds from getting in.
Yeah.
It's basically a trial. It's quite new. So, it's doing its job because it's better than a normal scarecrow because it can walk about.
Yeah, so it's like an NPC basically, an NPC scarecrow.
However, this machine had some faults. And the biggest fault was that it wasn't very waterproof. Like Scotland, bad weather.
Whose idea was that, to put a robot that's not waterproof in Scotland outside?
It probably was waterproof, but some water went under the cracks or something.
So it hadn't dealt with heavy rainfall.
It didn't have its coat on.
Right, okay, yeah.
And so the rain gets in.
Right.
And it ends up going faster, and it starts running over some of the crops.
I don't know if that would happen though. I think it would just break down, wouldn't it?
Eventually, but it must have targeted a certain region that
made it
disabled
go faster.
Certain connections.
Right, so it ran across the crops. Then what happened?
And the farmer's not a happy bunny.
No, I'm sure he's not.
So he kicks it in frustration.
Right.
And he actually kicks it down a well.
And it dies.
And obviously the well, there's more water.
Yeah.
So yeah. That kills it. However, wells, they're not used, are they?
No.
So when the robot falls down the well, he hears like a big click. And obviously this farmer's mad because he's just lost all his crops and that takes ages to grow again. He's going to be broke. He's stressing.
Yeah.
However, because he hears that jangle, he's happy because he's found a mineral called quartz down by the well.
At the bottom of the well?
At the bottom of the well. And all's well that ends well.
Hold on. Was that all's well that ends well meant to be a joke about wells at the end?
No, it wasn't actually. No, I didn't realise that.
I think this. Hold on. Firstly, don't normal stationary scarecrows do their job absolutely fine?
No, because there's crows that land on them and they peck at them.
Oh, and then the crow knows that it's not real, so then all the other birds.
I don't have any friends that are farmers, but I think they can. I think they know
so
the problems with
birds are getting smarter.
Probably.
So now you need an AI scarecrow.
Well, it's an improvement, isn't it? We're always trying to improve stuff. Let's try and improve a scarecrow.
Okay. So this scarecrow's NPCing about, walking about this like crop or whatever. The rainfall comes. The bit that's a bit crazy, right? This must be a strong ass farmer, right? If it's kicked a robot down a well. Because the robot, you said it started running about when it had a bit of water in it, and then it fell over or whatever, and it started to break down. How is he kicking it into a well?
Just drop kicks it.
Just a livid Scottish.
I don't think they weigh as much as you think. Like if you look at the Tesla bot, I can't remember how much it weighs, but that's strolling about. It looks quite thin. I don't think they're too heavy.
Okay, so he's kicked, and then when he heard a clink when it fell down, that was when he heard the quartz, and that's when he's got.
I think they investigated because he's called up probably the company, and he's like, "This robot doesn't work. I want a refund." Company comes and picks it up. Oh, you got a little quartz mine down there.
So how are they getting down the well? Just like a ladder?
It's doable, isn't it?
I don't know. It depends how big the well is. But if the robot's got in there, then I guess a human could. Right. I just don't see like. Why are we prioritising scarecrows for AI? Surely there's bigger jobs that can be done than standing about in a field.
All the companies are just double down on AI and just like, what can we do? What can we do that's different? How can we use AI? It's the future.
I think I think if you're a farmer, as it is, right, and when your crops get destroyed, then your whole business is messed up. Why are you investing in a fucking robot scarecrow? Like, honestly, why wouldn't you get a robot like combine harvester to do everything for you?
Get a robot sheepdog. That would be quite good.
I don't think that's possible, is it? How are you getting a robot that knows how to chase sheep?
Because artificial intelligence, it teaches itself.
Oh, it's unreal. I don't like it. I don't want to be a farmer. I don't want to be a farmer because in the future everything will just be robots, man. The only real thing will be the produce. We'll have like robot like farmers doing everything. Oh, it's weird. Oh, do you think we'll be able to automate things like that, like farming?
Probably.
No one's going to need to drive a combine harvester. The combine harvester drives itself.
I reckon so.
And then we never need to do it.
The concept of the use of AI, the best use is to do jobs that are boring or monotonous or dangerous.
Yeah.
So that would probably fall in that category.
Yeah.
It'd save farmers a lot of time.
They're
struggling.
Man. They are. Who wants to be a farmer? No kid wakes up and thinks, I want to be a farmer.
Also, farmers, they've always been the same, haven't they? There's not been much innovation.
Yeah, not
so
evolved.
It's time to get some AI in there.
Get some AI in there. Get an AI scarecrow, AI sheepdog, AI combine harvester.
Anyway, the fella's alright.
So, the farmer?
Yeah, he's happy.
Yeah,
he's got a buy.
He's made loads of money.
The company has to, provide him with a refund. But
and then he makes loads of money from the quartz because he can sell it.
Well, assuming it's a lot, yeah.
Well, like you said, all's well that ends well in the well. There you go.
If you've got any AI news in your area, we've got an email.
Oh yeah, also just email us with random questions because that'd be quite interesting. What is the email, Jacob?
So it's questions@openmindedpodcast.co.uk. It's a bit long, but we couldn't find a domain that was shorter.
Well, we'll put it in like the show notes underneath in here, like the description or whatever. But there we go. If people have gone this far, if you've gone this far and you're still listening, send us a question. Even if it's just liked your podcast, boys.
I want the most extreme question you can think of.
Yeah, weird stuff. Stuff that we don't want to answer because that'd be interesting. Yeah.
And
anyway,
that's that.
we're wrapping up episode 1. Decent. Thank you, everybody. See you in a bit.